Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a real pleasure to follow the Right Honourable Gentleman for Pontypridd in this debate because, as has already been mentioned, he co-chairs the all-party group, and I think he has done a fantastic job in raising awareness of this issue in a relatively short time, because it's not that long since the all-party group was actually set up, so it must be a bit of a record in terms of actually getting the government to move. But I want to also, at the start of this debate, thank the Minister for what he has said, and also to pay tribute to the Honourable Member for Winchester, the Minister for Public Health, for what he said on Tuesday and the speed with which he has moved on this issue. Many people have been involved in highlighting this issue over the years, and I want to join with what has been said already in tribute to people like Lord Jeff Rooker, to the scientists who have been involved, to the charities in Scotland and Shine, which operates in Northern Ireland and across the rest of the UK, have done tremendous work in bringing this issue and campaigning on this issue over many years, as well as the work that they're doing to help families affected by having someone with Spina Bifida or Hydrocephalus in their family, or who has been affected by the passing of someone in their family who has had these conditions. So I think this is a great debate. It's a great positive move forward. Clearly, we would wish that it had happened earlier, but we're delighted that it has reached this stage now, and I want to thank this government for really taking this forward now. I think it is important that we move ahead, that we don't lose time, because I think that too much time has been wasted. And I think that the approach that has been adopted over many years by the government of not wanting to sort of go down the road of having what is described by some people as mass medication, and there's been all sorts of issues raised, and there have been genuine issues raised about the effects, but the science, I think, proves very clearly and objectively that this is safe, that it will prevent thousands of people being born with very severe conditions. And that's not taking into account, of course, the many tens of thousands of terminations that happen as a result of parents learning that their unborn baby may be affected very severely by Spina Bifida or Hydrocephalus. So I think that the approach of the governments previously of advice, education, information, supplementing diet with taking folic acid supplements hasn't worked. I mean, that's clear. Over the last 20-30 years, it really hasn't made the difference. Mainly because of some of the issues we've discussed already. The fact that almost half of pregnancies are unplanned. The fact that a lot of people in certain demographics and age groups simply they're less likely to know or come across the information that's out there, and the fact that at the end of the day, these neural tube defects, which develop 14 to 28 days into pregnancy, most women, it's too late once that has happened to start taking folic acid supplements or to begin that. The advice about taking folic acid in the early stages of pregnancy is I have no argument with it, but in the vast majority of cases it will be too late. These supplements need to be taken in advance of conception. That's the reality of it if it's going to make a difference. And so if we continue with the current policy, it's simply the problem is going to continue. So there is an alternative. It is safe. It has been proved in over 85 countries, including countries like Australia and the United States, to have worked. The scientific consensus is enormous, and the Honourable Gentleman read out the list of science bodies and clinicians and others who are all agreed about the need to proceed along the path that we're now talking about. And therefore, I too join in the call that this should not be a long, drawn-out consultation. There is, I think, ample evidence out there already. I think it should be proceeded with as quickly as possible to ensure that it's introduced. And I would make this plea that it should be introduced across the United Kingdom. We had a debate yesterday, and I don't want to get into all of that about Northern Ireland. Let us not, on an issue like this, and the government has taken steps to introduce sensible, non-controversial measures where appropriate. On an issue like this, the honourable gentleman who spoke for the SNP mentioned the high incidence in Scotland. We have a high incidence in Northern Ireland, so he's absolutely right to make the point. I want to congratulate what the Scottish Government has done on this issue. But we can't allow some kind of interregnum in Northern Ireland. This is important, and I think there would be an absolute consensus across the board in Northern Ireland that this should happen alongside the rest of the United Kingdom. Can I just say that the effects of these conditions on children who are born with them are extreme, I have spoken previously of my own son Andrew, who was born in 1990 with Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus, and about the severe impact that had on his life, and as he grew older, more severe effects, and of course the effects that has not just on him, and he was a bright, cheerful boy, and he was a lovely child, and those who came in contact with them, their lives were enriched, and certainly our lives were enriched by having him. But it also had severe effects on him. He was hospitalised many times, shunt operations and setbacks, and it has an effect on the wider family. It has an effect on the wider entire family circle and all the rest of it. And in many cases, we had great family backup and support, but in many cases people don't have that. And this is a really, really massive issue, and this is where charities like Shine and others come into play, where they provide such fantastic support and help and assistance. But if it can be prevented, why are we not taking the steps that need to be taken? Andrew had 8 years of a wonderful life in the sense that he was loved and he gave out so much love, but the problems that he had and faced throughout that short life were very, very difficult for him and for the rest of his family. We would love to see children being born without having to have these conditions. They don't need to, and I think that we just have to now move on with this issue. There is no good reason not to. And there may be some abstract arguments advanced, and there may be some theoretic arguments about, liberty and mass medication, these things. I think it's been disproved very, very clearly that this is a bit of a total red herring. This is something that can be done. It's safe. It works. It won't prevent entirely, as has been said. There will still be some children born, but there will be a lot less. And I think that we need to really move on. So I really want to welcome what the government has done. They have listened and they have responded. And now let's get on to it. And again, just want to pay tribute to everyone who's been involved in the campaign to get it to this stage. And I hope now that if nothing else happens, I know the agenda is dominated by certain subjects, but if we can get this done, this will be a great legacy for this government and this Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam